For Creamer Media's Polity, I'm Thabi Madiba. Researcher and analyst Professor Raymond Suttner joins me to discuss leadership that can be respected. Welcome, Professor.
Thank you.
You suggest that it will not be easy to find leaders that we can respect.
Yeah, you know, I think people are preoccupied with this notion of ethical leadership because the current president obviously symbolizes a range of qualities that are antithetical, the opposite of ethical leadership. He's corrupt, he abuses power, he's creating instability, he's enriching himself and those close to him. He's doing a lot of things. We know from looking at President Zuma that that is not ethical leadership. And the way people are approaching the question of ethical leadership, to me, is a bit problematic because they're expecting, when we look at whoever is in what they call the race for the ANC presidency, one or other of these will represent ethical leadership. Now, my view is we need to look the other way around and say to ourselves, what are the qualities that constitute ethical leadership? And it may be that one of those who are racing for the ANC leadership or leaders of opposition parties represent those qualities. But we need to not start with the individuals. You see, leadership is not something you are born with. There's a saying, so-and-so is a born leader. It's not true. People grow with experience and from learning, from watching others, whether in sport or in politics. They grow into becoming great leaders. If you take the example of Mandela, for example, Mandela was not always the kindly, gentle, statesman-like leader that we came to know after 1990. First of all, he grew up in the former Transkei, imbibing a warrior-type masculinity. And at that stage, he says, he was not born with a longing for freedom because he actually thought he had everything that he needed. He had a belief that he was free. And it was only really when he got to the Witwatersrand that he got more conscious of racial discrimination, national oppression, and a range of humiliations under apartheid, and also meeting Walter Sisulu, who was already then very wise, very mature, very experienced, and he remained throughout Mandela's life his mentor. So that in the case of Mandela, who is a great example of an ethical leader, he didn't automatically become that. He had the advantage of being mentored by someone like Sisulu, who would sometimes restrain him. Mandela, in his youth, he was a boxer, and he took this fighting spirit into breaking up meetings of the Communist Party and the Indian Congress because the Youth League was opposed to them, but they didn't say go and break up their meetings, but he used to do this. And it took a long time, and he was reprimanded more than once by the ANC leadership in the 50s. And it took a long time for Mandela to become the man that we knew in the 1990s. He was also the man who established MK together with Sisulu and others. He became the first commander-in-chief of MK. But what Mandela showed and what he learned, because he was always listening to people and learning, I stress in this article, listening. Mandela as a lawyer, Tambo as lawyers, used to listen for long to clients in their law firm. Most lawyers say, okay, that's fine. We can't use that in the court case. But Mandela used to listen because he felt the pain of people. But when he went to jail, and there he was also having appointments with people all the time, listening a lot, and then he saw the possibility of a peace settlement. And he worked towards achieving peace. So the man of war who took on the apartheid regime as a military person also became a man of peace when it was possible. So he grew, the dimensions of Mandela as a leader changed over time. And we need to understand then that we can't necessarily find leaders in existing political parties, especially not the ANC, who are ethical, who are competent, who meet the needs of our times. These leaders need to be developed in organizations.
In your article, you seem to see the resolution of the problem of the leadership to relate to building organizations differently from those that exist now.
Yes. You see, I think we've got to look at the range of organizations, or let's say, range of sectors where people have grievances which will only be resolved by rebuilding our democratic order in a way that is a developing democratic and transformational project. Now, some people say, why do we stand for this? Can't we stop that? And, you know, the answer is not simple, because you can appeal to the president, and what's the point of appealing to the president if he's the source of the problem? If the president says there'll be zero tolerance of corruption, what does it mean if he is himself corrupt? So what we've got to do is try to create a sense of agency in ordinary people wherever they are located, whether they are landless people, youth, students, teachers, doctors, nurses, unionists, business people, to build organization. It's no good just being angry as an individual or going out and marching once. You have to have organization that is sustainable. And over time, as we had in the UDF, these organizations become a powerful force which are separate but also united. Now, I said in my article, I think, that we shouldn't aim at repeating the UDF today, because what is significant about the present is UDF was primarily an organization for the poor. It did have some shopkeepers, things like that, but didn't have big business. What you now have is a very new situation where business is an important factor in dealing with the mire that Zuma has created in South Africa. When Nhlanhla Nene was removed, business and the financial sector particularly came out and expressed their disquiet with what was happening. Zuma remains indifferent to whether the rand falls, junk status, all these things. He doesn't care. But business has shown that they are not just going to sit back and rely on quiet talks with government. It was very significant, in my view, that business leadership South Africa said to their members in a recent march of COSATU that they should let their workers off to go in the march. And when Bonang Mohale, the CEO of Business Leadership South Africa, was asked, will you go on the march? He said, definitely. Now that's very significant. It's very important to see whether business will sustain this, and I think we must encourage them. And we've got to understand that building that unity creates possibility for leadership of new people in the sense of newly organized sectors, but sectors that are already organized. And they also have unity over some things, but they also have differences. I mean, business's idea about how to resolve social inequality will not be the same as the workers and the landless. And you will need to agree to differ on some things, but debate those things. So my view is that building a new leadership needs to come not only, I'm not discounting the ANC or opposition parties, but we've also got to look at other sectors having the capacity to grow a new leadership that will help rebuild our democratic project with a leadership that we respect. Right now, I don't know who respects the leadership, and that is a problem.
Thank you, Professor. That was Professor Raymond Suttner speaking to Creamer Media's Polity about leadership that we can respect.